Hold it. You know, before we get to the comparison, how about if you walk down memory lane with me?
Hi.
Remember that time in November 2007 when Sergey introduced us to Android? This barebones video was a reaction to Project Purple, which we all know as one of the most iconic keynotes by Steve Jobs in January of that same year.
An iPod. A phone. Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device, and we are calling it iPhone.
Now, what's interesting is to see Google playing catch-up to a party they weren't really even late for. Not sure if you knew, but the company originally acquired Android nearly 2 years earlier, which, if you do the math, is about the time Apple began one of their most secretive projects ever. Heck, I don't even know how Steve managed to keep the iPhone a secret from Eric Schmidt, who sat on Apple's board, all while being Google's CEO, in which we saw at the Apple keynote. Why does this matter? Well, because if you see Google's first prototype for Android, codenamed the Sooner, it was built around competing with BlackBerry and Windows Mobile. It's clear that Google knew that project had to just be scrapped in January because the second prototype, codenamed the Dream, was such a last-minute scramble that it took Google a full extra year to go from that basic mess to what we knew as the HTC Dream, aka the T-Mobile G1. Nearly 15 years have passed, and it seems Google keeps playing this catch-up game. First, it was only a software partner to other OEMs, but then it built the Nexus 1 with HTC in 2010. Then that whole project got shelved for the Pixel, all while Apple's 15-year formula continues to stand strong. Yes, that's how long this rivalry discussed in partnerships has lasted, and yet I think this is the first time that Google has figured itself out enough to not just compete, but actually to win. On one corner, we have the iPhone 13 Pro Max, Apple's best iPhone ever and also a showcase of access to all the company's capabilities. And then on the other, we have the Pixel 6 Pro, the best phone Google has ever made by far, and the very important step into the character the company needed. I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocketnow, and let's dive into this interesting comparison. Yes, I already know what you're going to say. This comparison isn't fair because there's such a dramatic price difference between these phones, but the reason why it makes sense is because there are actually three important similarities between them. The first is that these are the best phones made by both companies, period. Second, their major selling point inclines mostly to their camera capabilities. But then third, this is actually the gateway to getting the latest version of either Android or iOS for each company. And listen, it's not Google's fault that Apple wants to charge so much more for a similar product, but then again, that's why we do these comparisons. Visually, these phones are just night and day when it comes to their design language. Listen, they're both just as massive as they are gorgeous in unique ways, but this is a rare case where even if the Pixel is my last choice when it comes to weight distribution, I do feel it does a better job than the iPhone. See, even if the Pixel is 3mm taller and about a millimeter thicker, it manages to be a crazy 30 grams lighter given its use of aluminum over Apple's stronger stainless steel. Sure, the iPhone might be using more expensive materials, but in the real world, it's not like if the benefits are exponential, if neither extends enough to protect either the ceramic shield or the Gorilla Glass Victus. Neither is easy to handle with one hand, but my points go to the Pixel for how the curves serve for slightly better ergonomics and how the visor camera array wobbles less on a table. I'll praise Apple for how MagSafe can serve awesome purposes around it, but that requires optional accessories that you'll definitely have to buy. Now, once you flip them around, the tables turn in my opinion. Yes, they both use beautiful AMOLED panels with the exact same variable refresh rate from 10 to 120 Hz, and you could even say the Pixel has a slight edge over the iPhone because of its always-on capabilities and the extra pixel density. Where I feel Apple wins is in its implementation, as the iPhone brings double the contrast ratio, which you can totally tell in how detail just pops. I also feel it handles brightness extremes better, all while sipping less power than the Pixel in my daily testing. BlackBerry used to be, so easy handling is essential. And then, even if they both have dual-firing speakers, I feel the iPhone provides richer results and is less prone to be muffled by your fingers, preventing breaks from falls, but I wish it did the same for scratches. And then once you switch into internals, I think it's safe to almost call this a tie. Google did have a rocky start with Tensor, but those bugs have been ironed out. They might not be at the A15 Bionic level, but if we're honest, the iPhone doesn't take full advantage of it either. Then, things like RAM are irrelevant. What you care about most is that they both start at the same base storage, have the same water resistance, offer all flavors of 5G, have some sort of fast wired and wireless charging, but then the Pixel brings newer versions of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Now, once you switch to software, the tie sort of continues, but not in a positive way. You could make the arguments about iOS versus Android, but I think it should go beyond that. See, both Apple and Google have the most unergonomic way to approach large phones. Yes, each has some sort of a gesture to help you reach things, but it doesn't change the fact that there is so much wasted space here, with controls you can't even reach with one hand, and very little flexibility to customize things to your liking. It seems both companies fell victims of thinking that simply blowing up their beloved smaller phones of the past was a good idea. Now, as for the operating systems themselves, a lot is really a matter of taste. I do find Google's implementation of Android to be more useful, with the Google feed to the left of the launcher, easy access to the search bar from the bottom, and little things like music detection on the always-on display, along with that at-a-glance widget serving you timely information coming up. You'll hate the fact that if you don't like some of these elements, you can't really disable them and get some canvas space back, but at least third-party launchers are an option for you. As for iOS, I do like the consistency of the widgets, I do prefer the smarter approach to the app tray, and even if Google has been growing its ecosystem, it's still doing baby steps when compared to how seamless it is to own Apple products and see them work together. And then it's up to you whether you feel the relevance of iMessage and FaceTime matter enough over the plethora of alternatives that never really seem to survive more than a couple of years from Google. I would say that then in day-to-day use, the iPhone has an important edge over the Pixel. Surely Google has improved battery life through software updates, but it doesn't come even close to the legendary 13 Pro Max. I'm not sure if Google just hasn't tuned the Tensor chip well, or it has to do with the always-on display, but you can tell it drains power quicker. I wouldn't say you'll notice much of a difference in phone calls though, but I do feel the iPhone handles data reliability better whether on 5G or even with the LTE limitations that currently Google Fi has imposed on it when I try to compare the 5G to the Pixel. Obviously, the last piece of the puzzle is photography and video, with this being the first time that we finally have a Pro Pixel to compare a Pro iPhone to. And sheer numbers alone would even make the point of Google having an easy win over Apple, but just keep in mind that more megapixels isn't everything, and each company is at the top of their game in providing the extra kick of computational photography. Now, once you look at the results on a computer monitor, this is a very weird case where you'll have to pick the phone that does what you like most. I prefer the Pixel's added contrast and handling of color and detail, even if you can mimic some of this through rich contrast photo modes on the iPhone. Yes, for me, the Pixel still is the king of photography, but then its choice for cameras is pretty weird. For example, at 0.5x, the iPhone grabs so much more with its ultra-wide than the Pixel can at 0.7x. Seriously, these short jumps between that and the primary and then 2 or 4x with a telephoto are not as useful as the jump to 3x the iPhone provides. But then you'll appreciate the Pixel more once you zoom in further, as it just obliterates the iPhone in optical and digital compensation. Google also lacks the epic macro functionality the iPhone provides, though a bit of play with the telephoto will get you a bit closer. Now, once you switch to low light, the Pixel keeps winning in just how much clarity it's able to pull from very harsh scenarios and from all its focal lengths. And yes, I do agree the sunflower effect from the lens flares on the primary is pretty annoying, but so are the green flares on the iPhone. I seriously trust the Pixel more. I will say I prefer the selfies from the iPhone, as I do feel diffusion handles skin tones far better than the extra contrast of the Pixel, but then I do prefer how Google handles portraits given the better crop, and I also feel I can trust the Pixel more for low light selfies than I can the iPhone. Now, where I feel the Pixel earns the Pro in its name is when the added tricks come to play. Motion photos, long exposure, and astrophotography are all things only Pro manual controls can do, and yet the Pixel manages to automate these for you in the coolest way, while Apple provides none of that. Really, the iPhone earns the Pro title for its video capabilities, but not necessarily for the tricks. Yes, you get ProRes and cinematic video, but even if you were to stick to regular video capabilities, I do feel the sensors are large enough to provide some great bokeh, and the codec is good enough for the results to have this continue being my favorite B camera. The Pixel is not far behind though, but I do sense a lot better handling of detail and dynamic range coming from the iPhone. That being said, props to Google for being the only Android phone that comes even close, which you might notice most in selfie video. See, the quality on both phones is very close, and where you really have to nitpick to notice the iPhone handles a few small things better, but which I doubt you'll notice once I add compression to the final results on the video export. To conclude, it's interesting to see Apple and Google finally go head-to-head in an almost fair fight, and yet realize that each company values different things. While Apple has drifted most of its Pro ideas to video, Google is all about doing the same for photography, and it has since day one. I don't think either is at the point where any real professional would switch a real camera for a phone, but I think they both succeed in providing good enough Pro tools to the average consumer, with the Pixel going a step further in my opinion with its photography prowess. Obviously, I have to call out a winner, and this is where my personal needs are the only reason I'd pick the iPhone 13 Pro Max. It does a good enough job in photography, video is best in class, and social media is handled better by iOS. And even if it's more expensive, I also feel it nails smartphone essentials like battery life and display better than Google, and if I want to save a little money, I just go for the smaller Pro. I'm not saying it's a better phone, and actually, if you go back to my other comparisons, you'll notice this is the first time the Pro Max wins. Listen, I applaud Google for how it finally takes its hardware seriously. And if you'd rather save a bit of money, or if photography matters more to you than video, then I have no problem in recommending you go for the Pixel 6 Pro. If anything, its shortcomings are a clear reason to wait for the next generation, and we all know the Pixel 7 Pro is coming very soon. Let us know if you agree with my thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're at it, follow us on social media and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. You can also follow me on my personal handles to see me give this comparison to the iPhone for odd reasons that are mostly personal. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I'm Jaime Rivera. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.